Early life and educato. Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev was born on March 2, 1931, in Privolnoy, a small farming village in the Russian SFSR. His family were poor peasants. Order of the Red Banner of Labor, rare achievement, at age 17. In 1950, he was accepted into Moscow State University, where he studied law. It was here that he joined the Communist Party, a decision that would shape his destiny. Rise through the party. After graduating, Gorbachev returned to his home region and steadily climbed the ranks of the Communist Party. His intelligence, charisma, and modern outlook made him stand out. By 1970, he became the first secretary of the Stavropolia region. Just a decade later, in 1980, he was elevated to the Politburo, becoming one of the youngest members, becoming general secretary. 1980s Kremlin footage, funeral parades of Soviet leaders. The early 1980s saw a series of elderly Soviet leaders die in quick succession. When Konstantin Chernenko passed in March 1985, Gorbachev was chosen as General Secretary of the Communist Party, the most powerful position in the USSR. At just 54, he was young, energetic, and ready to reform. Perestroika and Glasnost, news clips, freedom rallies, 80s citizens speaking out. Gorbachev introduced two key policies: perestroika, meaning restructuring of expression and access to information for the first time. Soviet citizens could criticize the government, watch foreign films, and read previously banned books. These reforms opened the floodgates, but also unleashed unrest. Foreign policy and the Cold War. Reagan-Gorbachev summits. Berlin Wall footage. Gorbachev met with Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, leading to historic agreements like the INF Treaty in 1989. Eastern Bloc countries like Poland, Czechoslovakia, and East Germany began breaking free from Soviet control. The Berlin Wall fell, and Gorbachev did not send troops to stop it. This earned him global praise and the 1990 Nobel Peace Prize. The collapse of the USSR footage of 1991 coup. Yeltsin on a tank, Soviet flag lowered, but inside the USSR things were falling apart. Economic reforms were slow, shortages worsened, and nationalist movements surged. In August 1991, hardline communists tried to overthrow Gorbachev in a coup of a country that no longer existed. The Soviet Union was officially dissolved. Later, YER's interviews, TV appearances, Gorbachev Foundation, photos with world leaders. Gorbachev formed the Gorbachev Foundation and remained a global voice for peace, democracy, and climate change. He criticized both Western capitalism and Putin's authoritarianism, advocating for open societies. Though he ran for Russian president in 1996, he received less than 1% of the vote, a sign of how unpopular he was inside Russia. Death and legimus. Clips of 2022, tributes, world leaders' reactions. Gorbachev passed away on August 30, 2022, at age 91. His funeral was held in Moscow, without the honors of a full state funeral. Too many in the West. He was a hero who ended the Cold War peacefully. In Russia, opinions remain divided. Some blame him for the chaos of the 1990s. Others revere him for his honesty and courage. Outro. Mikhail Gorbachev changed the world not with weapons, but with ideas. His legacy is complex, but his courage to reform a superpower will never be forgotten. fade out with reflective music and photo collage of Gorbachev's life. Intro, he was the last leader of the Soviet Union, but the first to truly challenge its system. A peasant's son turned reformer. Mikhail Gorbachev rose to power during one of the tensest moments in world history. He helped end the Cold. His words, not weapons, praised in the West, controversial at home. His legacy is complex, powerful, and unforgettable. This is the life story of Mikhail Gorbachev, the man who changed the world by changing the Soviet Union. Music swells, fades into segment title: Early Life and Education. Early Life and Education of Mikhail Gorbachev. Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev was born on March 2, 1931, in the small farming village of Privolnoy, located in the Stavropolia region of southern Russia, then part of the Soviet Union. His upbringing was modest. His family were peasant farmers, and life was shaped by hardship, war, and deep loyalty to the Communist Party. As a child, Gorbachev lived through the trauma of Stalin's collectivization policies and the devastating famine of the early 1930s. Both of his grandfathers were arrested during Stalin's purges, but later released. Events that would influence Gorbachev's lifelong skepticism toward authoritarian power. Despite his humble origins, young Mikhail showed exceptional intelligence and discipline. From an early age, he worked alongside his father, operating agricultural machinery. At just 17, he was awarded the Order of the Red Banner of Labor, one of the Soviet Union's highest civilian honors, for his dedication and productivity during harvest season. In 1950, Gorbachev's academic potential earned him admission to the prestigious Moscow State University, where he studied law. It was here that he joined the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, CPSU, and began forming connections with progressive thinkers and reform-minded students. He also met his future wife, Raisa Titarenko, a philosophy student, with whom he would share a lifelong partnership. Gorbachev graduated in 1955, becoming the first in his family to receive a university degree. Strong work ethic, elite education, and early exposure to party politics laid the foundation for his rapid rise within the Soviet system. Rise through the party after graduating from Moscow State University in 1955. Mikhail Gorbachev returned to his home region of Stavropolia, where he began his political career in the local branch of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, CPSU. He advanced quickly through the ranks, combining ideological loyalty with a pragmatic and modern approach to leadership. By the early 1960s, Gorbachev had become first secretary of the Stavropolia City Komsomol Committee, the youth wing of the Communist Party, before moving on to senior roles in the regional administration. His big break came in the 1970s, when he was appointed first secretary of the CPSU in Stavropolia Krai. In this position, he gained valuable experience managing agriculture, industry, and local politics. It also brought him into close contact with influential leaders in Moscow, including Yuri Andropov, then head of the KGB, who would later become a key mentor. Gorbachev's combination of energy, competence, and fresh thinking set him apart from the older Soviet elite. In 1978, he was called to Moscow to serve as Secretary of Agriculture for the Central Committee, a powerful national post. Just 2 years later, in 1980, he reached the Politburo, the USSR's highest decision-making body, becoming its youngest member at the time. Behind closed doors, With Soviet leaders aging and dying in quick succession, Brezhnev in 1982, Andropov in 1984, and Chernenko in 1985, Gorbachev's youth, vision, and reputation as a reformer positioned him as the natural successor. Finally, in March 1985, at the age of 54, Mikhail Gorbachev was elected General Secretary of the Communist Party, making him the most powerful man in the Soviet Union and the first leader of a new generation, becoming General Secretary 1985 by the early 1980s. Its economy was stagnant, political leadership was aging, and the nation was weighed down by bureaucracy, censorship, and Cold War pressures. Between 1982 and 1985, each new leader represented more of the same rigid policies, failing reforms, and growing dissatisfaction. But change was coming. On March 11, 1985, of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the most powerful position in the USSR. His appointment marked a generational shift. Gorbachev was the youngest Soviet leader since Stalin and the first to be born after the 1917 revolution. Charismatic, intelligent, and forward-thinking, he broke the mold of stiff. The Soviet Union, he believed, needed modernization, openness, and economic restructuring if it were to survive the challenges of the 20th century. His rise to power was not just a personal triumph, it was the beginning of a revolutionary chapter in Soviet history, one that would ultimately change the world.